I don't want to be a fatalist. I'm trying to be a realist, but we're in a very, very deep crisis where we're funneling down to a critical point where if we don't start focusing on real healing and regimental balance and getting to some of the deeper belief systems that are disturbing and driving all these regimental pathologies and belief system pathologies, we're at a point now where we don't have the energy. Just like you said, you got to start down at the physical level before you get heavy into the belief systems. But we've got belief systems that are being brainwashed into people's heads that are going to take a level of commitment and effort and clarity on what we all want together, that if we don't, like, we got a narrow window before we cross the threshold, like you just talked about, into a completely different level of possibly no return. I mean, unless Jesus does come back and brings a lot of angels and starts cleaning up house and being daddy who's wiping bottoms for children that just didn't pay attention, which won't do well for the Catholic Church because they're the ones that's supposed to teach you how to do this in the first place. We've got,
well, if you
could all be praying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's definitely grounds for being pessimistic, but if you understand in spiritual science that on the spiritual side, there's a whole host of spiritual allies, you could say, what Steiner calls the spiritual hierarchies, that are there to help us. We're at a critical juncture right now, as Steiner points out, but you can see it as well for many other reasons. We're at a critical juncture in the evolution of the Earth where what previously was guided by higher powers, has been withdrawn to such an extent that we are now more or less on our own, for the most part as adults. Why? We're on our own because one of the reasons for Earth evolution is the issue of freedom and consciousness, freedom and love. And love is just all about relationships. It's who do you relate to? Now, in the past, you related to, well, because your parents said you should marry this person, or the church said, or the tribe said, or, whatever. And now you make your own choice. But of course, we have to learn from our choices sometimes. Oh, that didn't work out so well. But the point is that we are at a point where we have to start making choices. Now, when people make choices, it doesn't mean everybody's going to make the choice that's going to lead them forward. There are choices that lead you back. But I think my optimism comes from the fact that those who, you could say, have evolved enough and are incarnating and have incarnated are going to make those choices. And that's why you and I are there. Yeah. Because they're going to come and look for somebody, not everybody. Your average person off the street isn't interested. But people are searching. And what are they searching for? They're not sure themselves, but they end up in your office, or they end up in my office or someone else's, or they read a book, or something that triggers an enlightenment or awakening, and they start on their path. But Steiner pointed out that we're, as a result of this process of having to make a choice consciously, not just following what someone tells you, but having to make a choice, that we're heading, as a result of this movement towards materialism, transhumanism, and all of this IA, intelligence, artificial AI, a chat bot, et cetera, et cetera. We're heading towards a divide. Now you can already see it culturally,
oh, hell yes,
politically, but not just now, but over the next centuries. We're heading towards a divide between those people who choose the light and those who choose to stay in the dark. And that leads to eventually a big split, in terms of Earth evolution. But to the extent that you understand the laws of nature, and the laws of nature's God, you could say, then you are going to be protected. You're going to be saved because you're going to be healthy. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say they release another bug, if there ever was one. Let's say some Marburg or cholera or whatever.
Something. Yeah.
Are you worried? I'm not worried.
I'm not worried because it's the same principles you use for any of them.
Exactly. So the point is, yeah, I'll deal with it because I understand the law. I understand the therapeutics.
Yeah.
I understand, my own body and how to protect myself, etc. So you are going to be, God made people to be proof against the elements. It's only when we stray from the path, you could say, that we become hypersthenic, which means weak in the hyper sense, or hyposthenic. But if we stay and get into that optimal range, where we're sitting, and it doesn't matter that cholera passes by. It doesn't matter that, they adulterate the food supply or this or that, because you will be strengthening yourself to handle that. You can digest anything if you're healthy, even poison.
Yeah.
Okay. Steiner points out that the bodies are going to become more and more mechanical and material, and we see that already.
Yeah, totally transhumanism.
So the spirits that are going to incarnate, as we go forward, they are going to be the ones that survive are going to be the ones that are stronger, that they can actually live in a more material, rigid body, because the body you have now is a lot more material and difficult to deal with than one from 300 years ago or 500 years ago. And so they will have this strength and ability to literally live in that kind of a capsule in their next incarnation. And so they will survive, because everything is a struggle simply because it's meant to raise us in mind and consciousness. So I'm not pessimistic in that overall sense. I don't like what's going on.
No, I don't either.
I find it difficult, and I know people are going to be challenged by it. But the good news, and that's what the gospel, you could say, evangelion in Greek, is the good news is we were given this life science, this scientific system, this revolution of knowledge, which goes all the way back into scripture if you want to, that allows us to, you could say, protect ourselves, to grow ourselves, even in the face of everything that's going on around us. So.
Yeah, I think, I meditate on this. I talk to my soul about this, and, the conversations are long and deep, but I feel that it's really all a process of evolution. It's the evolution of our capacity for love. It's our evolution of consciousness. It's our evolution beyond dogma and closed belief systems into true spiritual realization and the ultimate of what Yogananda taught as self-realization. And, I think that on the planet, there are human beings at a wide variety of different levels of psychological and spiritual development. And there's the people that will be like you and I are referring to, and how we manage ourselves. And we're meant to be, I believe, as living examples of what's possible for other people. My philosophy has always been, if I get some kind of an illness, which I haven't had a day of lost work to an illness in over 40 years, because I take care of myself and I know what to do when the symptoms appear. And I say, okay, this is exactly what you got to do right now. You don't go to the gym, you go lay down, or you get in the sauna or whatever. You use your mind intelligently. But I think that, consciousness can't develop without, you can't just have Luke Skywalker. You got to have Darth Vader. Everybody just sits around playing games with lightsabers. So I think it's, if you have a deep trust in God, not a religious God that, has a faction. My trust is in the creative intelligence that is behind all that is. Because I've had too many experiences of it, and that's what's guiding me to help figure out why this woman's pelvis hurts. I mean, I think a genuine act of love is always supported by hierarchy of God.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we're learning to do. And, in a very short encapsulation, because I became a father again at 56, which I wasn't excited about, because I'm like, oh my God, this is the last thing I want to do right now. I'm ready to retire and relax. I'm tired. And, you know, long story made short, there was factors that were happening that shouldn't have been happening. I was being very careful not to get her pregnant, but it happened. And in fact, it happened 3 times. The first time she got pregnant, she had a miscarriage because we didn't know she was pregnant. We were doing a lot of long, hot saunas and shamanic journeys and using tobacco, which is not a good idea.
Yep.
Then she got pregnant again and had another miscarriage, which we didn't know why that happened. But then she got pregnant again. And I'm like, okay, 3 times. Okay, there's a soul that wants to be our child. So I said, okay, I got to go see who this soul is. So I asked my soul to guide me to the soul of the child and spoke to the soul. And I did. Then the same thing happened when Zoe came along 3 years later. I'm like, oh boy, this is another surprise. And both of their souls said to me almost identical things. They said, there are very significant changes coming to the earth.
Yes.
And we have very specific skills that are going to be needed.
Yep.
We chose you, Angie and Penny, to be our parents because, and they both said, we've been watching you from the afterlife for a long time, and you have the skills that will reactivate our knowledge.
Yes.
And
yeah, exactly. Every birth is a spiritual choice. You're born into a certain genealogical stream because that's what you need in order to, fulfill your mission, as it were.
Yeah.
And as long as you're making choices, I see that I only ultimately have responsibility only for myself to make choices for myself. But in doing that, as long as they're resonant with, scripture would put it, God's will, which is simply a matter of saying with your heart's desire, then you're helping everybody else around you that's connected to you. Because that choice, if it's the truth can only free and liberate and help other people. So ultimately, the key is not that you know what's good for anyone else. You only know what's good for you and make choices for yourself. But I'm not talking about practical things like, well, we need to feed our child or this kind of thing, but broader life choices, they have to be made based on what is ultimately in your heart's desire, why you came on this earth, because you have a mission to fulfill. And these 2 children, as you pointed out, they're going to come, and because they need to come, and we came in the way we came because we needed to. That's what we needed to fulfill our mission. And everybody's mission is different, and everybody's mission is important. The question is, as long as you make the choice to follow that path, to follow that mission, then you are going to advance. You're going to grow. Mm-hmm. You're going to be protected, you could say, spiritually. If you don't, then of course, it's like anybody, you can stagnate. You can stay where you are. I don't want to learn anymore. I just want to, stay with what I know. And as long as you keep learning like you're doing, you're constantly trying to understand, to know more. You're not standing still.
It's not in my genes to stand still. No. The problem is as you know, the more you learn and the more knowledge you have, the bigger your questions get.
Yes.
And so I find myself on this, I tell people God is like a horizon. The closer you get, the further it moves away. You can't ever actually get there. It's an infinite horizon. And so I just find myself asking bigger and more interesting questions. And paradoxically, I wish it was not always this way. Some of these things have taken me years of meditation to get the answers to, because the answer can't come all at once, because there's things I have to learn to be able to contextualize the answer. So my soul's taking me on this journey, and then all of a sudden, 5 years down the road, I get a true understanding of what love is, but I wasn't ready to receive it before.
Yeah, so, it would have been given to you, but you wouldn't know what to do with it. It'd be like a tool, given a tool, and you have no idea. You weren't taught how to use that tool, so it's of no value.
Yeah, it'd be like someone 120 years ago finding an iPhone laying on a next where the horses are standing. They would be completely baffled and probably think it was a fishing lure or something,
Yeah, no, we receive what we need at the time we're ready to receive it and able to do something with it. And that's why it's not a matter of, oh, everybody should understand this. It's a matter of putting it out into the consciousness and the universe. And those who are ready to, that's the wonderful thing about the internet and your podcast, for example, those who are ready to hear it. Not everybody who's listening or will listen to this podcast will necessarily, understand it, but those who are ready will, they'll jump up and say, "Oh, yeah."
And even those that aren't ready and don't understand it, at least we've done the favor of planting the seed for them.
Exactly. You will plant a seed, and it may be several years later that it comes.
It grows.
It grows. Yeah, exactly. So it's not about how many people know it or hear it. It's more that you put it out into the ether, and you're doing your job, because those who need to know will find
Yeah.
you.